Hello everyone, this is Sonia here with the Sci-fi Adventures Channel, and I'm happy to be back on the channel with more of Time Tracks. This is going to be Chapter 4, which I have titled Spencer's Return and Daniel's Rescue. Sophia started to relax again as soon as TC told her their next stop would be taking them to Daniel. But as she sat back down in the passenger seat, she was overcome by a wave of melancholy. Even though she did not want to think about it, she could not get the image of the last time she had seen Daniel out of her head, especially that terrible moment when she had looked at the ring on her finger and knew it was really over. No wonder she had stuffed the ring into her jeans pocket and willed herself to forget about it until now. She stood up briefly then to check her pocket, and sure enough, the ring was still there. She was definitely not ready to look at it, though, and so she left it where it was and sat back down. Her breathing had become shallow, and she was shaky. Taking in a sharp breath, she tried to calm down, and after a few uncomfortable and slightly painful moments of reflection, she started to better understand the source of her turmoil. Whether she liked it or not, she was beginning to see her breakup with Daniel from a different perspective. Daniel had actually started to act differently weeks before the day of their breakup, and she had just not wanted to see it. He had already become preoccupied and much more distant, and now that she knew that the Time Bandit had intentionally interfered with their relationship, how responsible could she really hold Daniel for their breakup? For all she knew, he could have come under some kind of spell. With a shiver, she hoped fervently that such a thing was not possible. But she had already learned that many unbelievable things were not only possible, but very real. TC himself believed that Daniel had somehow come under the influence of a third party, and that alone was more than enough cause for concern. As the urgency of Daniel's predicament began to weigh heavily upon her again, she cast an anxious glance in TC's direction. Sophia waited as patiently as she could while TC, who now had a clipboard in hand, was busy checking off items on what looked to be a long checklist of some kind. Finally, TC checked off the last item on the list, and Sophia could wait no longer. "Will we be able to get to Daniel soon, TC?" TC's brow was furrowed with concentration as he set the clipboard down and looked at her intently. "Well, about that, Miss Sophia, you might have noticed me checking my watch a little earlier." Sophia nodded in the affirmative, and TC continued. "As it turns out, miss, according to my trusty watch, another passenger is scheduled to arrive, and in fact, I expect he might be here any minute now." Sophia gasped out loud in surprise, momentarily forgetting her urgency to get to Daniel. Peering out the window of the train, she saw that it was now pitch dark outside. But as she strained her eyes to see, she made out a figure standing by one of the benches and shouted out with excitement, "It's Spencer." TC chuckled. "There you go, Miss Sophia. My trusty watch has never been wrong yet." Craning her neck, Sophia looked out the window again, suddenly worried. "Does he know what to do, TC? Does he know how to board the train?" TC did not say anything at first, but instead smiled broadly and shouted out the window, "Hello there, do you see the ladder?" Spencer must have heard TC right away, because he looked up in their direction and began waving his arms high in the air. They could hear him quickly climbing the ladder then, and within seconds he was bounding energetically into the cab with them. Spencer's bright blue eyes, that Sophia remembered so well, rested on her right away, and she smiled and waved. The memory of her own struggle to climb the very same ladder made her cringe slightly, and Sophia was struck not only by the ease in which Spencer had boarded the train, but by his obvious strength. Spencer did seem a bit out of breath, though, as he turned slowly around in a full circle until finally stopping to stare wide-eyed in front of old Destiny's control panel. Wow, just look at all this gadgetry. He then turned to the view screen before looking at TC. Are you the one who knows how to operate all this stuff? TC chuckled. Yes, that would be me for sure, Spencer. Spencer took a step back in obvious surprise when TC called him by name, but seemed to recover quickly. Oh, wait, of course. Sophia must have told you my name. I'm glad to meet you, sir. You must be the train conductor, and I see you have the initials TC there on your overalls. Sophia's pulse quickened suddenly, then, as she wondered how Spencer would take the news that TC was much more than just a train conductor and that a time bandit had altered their timeline. Sophia took a deep breath and tried to keep calm. You do indeed have it right, Spencer. It has become a nickname of sorts for me, but it really stands for something a little different than a train conductor. The puzzled expression that came over Spencer's features then made him appear curiously to Sophia, at least for the moment, much older and a good deal more serious. In fact, as Sophia continued to observe Spencer's surprisingly sober expression, she started to wonder if something had already happened to change him since their first meeting. Such a gripping sense of foreboding inexplicably grabbed hold of her then that Sophia was relieved when TC, at least for the moment, took the conversation in a lighter direction. Would you like to sit for a spell, Spencer? Sophia could only wonder how long Spencer might have walked that day, but she did notice that he did not hesitate to accept TC's offer and sank back hard into the seat with a heavy sigh. Thank you kindly. I ended up walking an awful lot today, and it is good to sit down. Speaking of sitting, I couldn't help but notice that there are only 2 seats up here in the front cab. TC nodded thoughtfully before speaking. Well, I was just thinking about that very thing myself, Spencer, and I wonder if the 2 of you might like to sit together in the passenger car. That is, when it comes time for us to depart. Sophia caught her breath, momentarily taken aback by the suggestion. She tried to keep her expression neutral as she thought it over. She had enjoyed being in the front cab with TC, but the more she thought about it, she had to admit that his suggestion did make the most sense. She looked over at TC, who gave her a brief but inquisitive look, and Sophia intuitively understood that he was asking if she was okay with the new seating arrangement. She smiled at TC and spoke up then in what she hoped was a reassuring and cheerful tone. I do actually think that's a good idea, TC. That is, if Spencer is okay with it. Spencer gave her a big, cheerful smile, and Sophia was pleased to once again see some of the carefree and boyish charm he had exhibited in their first meeting. Sounds great, Sophia. I'm also wondering if you 2 are ever going to tell me what all of this is about. I mean, why were Sophia and I both drawn to the train station? And what are we all doing here? Sophia and TC exchanged a knowing glance before TC answered. Well, that definitely is a mite complicated, Spencer, but let me first start off by saying Sophia and I are both mighty glad to officially welcome you aboard Old Destiny. Spencer grinned and, looking more boyish than ever, sprang forward suddenly to hand TC his gold ticket. That reminds me, I almost forgot to give you this. TC smiled his broad smile and took the ticket from Spencer. Well, that is mighty fine, Spencer. Thank you. Spencer eased back into the seat, and Sophia's heart skipped an anxious beat when she saw his earlier serious expression return. So, I hope you don't mind me asking, but if TC doesn't stand for train conductor, what does it stand for? TC cleared his throat before giving Sophia a reassuring wink. Well, Spencer, it might be more fitting to ask when and where in the world does it stand for? Spencer blinked in apparent confusion and surprise. When and where? What do you mean? I don't get it. Sophia could feel some tension in the air beginning to rise, and her mouth went dry. She might have despaired more at Spencer's reaction if she had not known how very good TC was under pressure. In fact, TC did not seem daunted at all as he continued on. This must be surprising to hear, but I'm actually what is called a time conductor. Spencer blinked again, but this time he also jumped up out of TC's seat so fast that Sophia was not sure if it was excitement or fear that motivated him. Maybe he had decided that she and TC were both crazy. Swallowing nervously, Sophia also became aware that she was more anxious and distressed than she had realized. In fact, she had become overheated and dizzy, and suddenly not sure at all that she could bear the sight of Spencer running away again. Too many people she cared about had left her that day, and it was just too much. Letting out a sharp cry of panic, Sophia felt herself starting to fall, and this time she somehow knew TC would not be able to catch her. What happened next was all jumbled up and confusing for her, but she could still faintly hear, as though from a great distance, TC and Spencer shouting out her name in unison as they both ran towards her. The very last thing she remembered before passing out, and even more vaguely, was both their faces full of concern and worry as they looked down at her. And that concludes Chapter 4. So I want to thank you for joining me for Chapter 4 of Time Tracks, and I look forward to being back with you with Chapter 5 very soon here on the Sci-fi Adventures Channel. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing the Time Tracks journey. I hope you've been enjoying the story, and for anyone who might be new to my Time Tracks story, you can find chapters 1 through 3 here on the Sci-Fi Adventures channel to kind of catch up with the story. So, again, thank you for watching, and I look forward to being back with you soon with Chapter 5 of Time Tracks. Until then, this is Sonia with Sci-Fi Adventures, signing off for now.